So the big question is this: how are real estate investors who don't have a ton of free time, don't have access to off-market deals, and didn't start life on third base, how do we grow a real estate business conservatively to support our families, finally leave the corporate rat race, and build a legacy? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. I'm Ed Matthews, and this is Real Estate Underground.
This is the Real Estate Underground podcast show, number 65.
Greetings and salutations, Real Estate Undergrounders. This is Ed Matthews with the Real Estate Underground podcast. Thank you so much for showing up today and listening in. I'm really excited about this gentleman who we're about to talk with. Not only is he a real estate investor like you and me, but he's also a technologist. And so, near and dear to my heart, I say fellow geeks unite, me being one as well. And my kids will tell you that I am not a geek. I'm actually a full-blown dork. And I resemble that remark, and I'm okay with it. So, Mike Kaeding with Norhart Investments, thank you so much for joining us today. And it's really good to see you, my friend. How you been?
Oh, I've been great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, for those of us, I've been stalking you online for quite some time, and I've been blown away by your success and all the things you have going on. And I can't wait to unpack that today. But for those of us out there that haven't met you yet, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your business, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, I'm CEO of Norhart. We design, build, and rent apartments, but really we're focused on driving down the cost of housing. We're already achieving a 20 to 30% reduction in cost, and we believe we can reach a 50% reduction in cost. But imagine what that means someday. It means someday your rent could be half, or your mortgage payment could be half. And that's the kind of energy and direction that we're headed as a company.
Excellent. And so I would love to learn more about that. So let's talk about the expense lines, so technology wise, but I was a former procurement and sourcing guy, right? So I understand cost reduction as part of a business model. Now, are you talking about cost reduction in terms of construction, operations, both, something else?
Primarily construction. If you look at the past 60 years, things like agriculture has improved productivity by 1,500%.
Right.
Manufacturing has been 760%. Do you have any guess what construction has done over the past 60 years?
I have no idea.
It's nothing. Well, it's 10%. Yeah. It's terrible, right?
Right.
If we just take the technologies and the innovations that these other industries have learned and apply it into construction, it's remarkable the impact that has. And so there's a variety of techniques that we take from those spheres. We're just copying what they've already learned and applied it in our space. We're having great success with that.
So are you talking about just-in-time inventory? Are you talking about, line manufacturing, like modular building? Is that what we're talking about?
All of the above.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the really simple starting points is in construction, all of the work is typically done by separate companies. So you have a different company that's the owner, different company that's a general contractor, subcontractors, suppliers, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So one of the first things we did was take that all in-house. So everyone is under one roof. We have plumbers, we have developers, we have people finding new sites. We rent the properties out to people. We even have manufacturing facilities and supply chain groups. But bringing that all under one roof right there solves some problems because of the interplay between different companies.
Right.
But you can really start to do some fun things. For example, we have a partnership with Toyota, and at Toyota, they produce a car every 55 seconds. Now, in our space in construction, we've applied some of the same techniques, and we're now producing an apartment unit every 5 hours. And we think we can get that down to 2 hours or even less. Now, what that does, it takes a 15-month project and drops it down to 9 months. How do we do that? We use basically the assembly line. Instead of moving a product down a line, you move the workers through the building. And we break the building down into batches, and each team moves every 5 hours through the building. And so that's one example of the techniques that we use.
Fascinating.
But all the list that you had earlier, we're using as well.
So when you talk about teams, are you talking about, you have an MEP team, or do you break it down to electrical, plumbing, HVAC? Like, how granular does that team building get?
Yeah. So if you looked at our
We're going to
massive
go full
schedule,
geek
there's
on you
about
here.
100 and what was that?
I said, I'm going to go full geek on you here. I want to hear every detail.
Oh, I love it. We actually have like 120 tasks
Okay.
that go into it. So they get pretty granular down to like each coat of paint in a unit,
Yeah.
when the cabinets get installed. So it's about 120 different tasks. Our teams, there's probably a dozen or so different teams, and each team will subdivide their team into the different tasks that are involved.
Okay. All right. So on a team particular, you'll have an E2, or, to be able to handle all the switches and outlets and whatnot. You'll have, a carpenter to install cabinets and flooring and trim and all that. That's what we're talking about? So it's a multidisciplinary team?
Yeah, it can even be multidisciplinary. Oftentimes it's single disciplinary.
Okay.
To give you some example, the carpenters who are on the front end of all of this,
Yeah.
they have one team that sets the walls. They have another team that sets the floor pods.
Okay.
And even before that step, we have a factory that produces all of that. And it's right in there with the whole schedule.
Right. Fascinating. And so I'm curious, it's a complex, well, it's actually straightforward, but it's a very complex business model.
Yeah.
How did you figure this out? What's your background?
Boy, my education's in computer science, mathematics, and management. So not at all related, but my family originally started the business. So my dad started it. And it was a very small real estate company. We only built a handful of apartment buildings at the time. And I grew up with it. So day in and day out, I have there's stories of us as a family trip going to the local hardware store to pack up 8 different carts full of materials and then drive that off to the building. We were very scrappy. There was only a few of us working in each building.
Yeah.
But my dad really wanted me to join the business. And I really didn't want to. And the reason I didn't want to is I didn't want people to think it was given to me.
Right.
So I had to really struggle through my own ego on that. But deep down, what I really wanted to do was make some kind of meaningful, positive impact on the world. And so getting past my own ego, I realized like, here's an opportunity to take this small business and grow it to that kind of level to make an impact in housing.
Yep.
And so I joined with my dad, and unfortunately, not long after we were working together, he passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And essentially overnight, I was leading this business. And there was I didn't know much, right? I was very inexperienced.
Mm-hmm.
But there was some magic to that, because our inexperience, our ignorance allowed us to start questioning everything.
Sure.
Why is it done this way?
Right.
Why can't we do it some other way? And then there was nobody to tell us no.
Right.
And so looking back at some of the risks and things we took on, I don't know if I would do again, but because of that ignorance, we were able to push things forward and start down this journey to create the model that we have today.
Wow, that's interesting. I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
So in terms of, so the focus has always been apartment buildings, or have you applied this to like a build to rent type model, or single family homes as well?
Yeah. So when it was a small family business, my dad got into single family homes, got into mini storage. And as we've grown, we've realized that that's not the right strategy for us.
Okay.
We're trying to drive down the cost. And so if we want to drive down the cost, it's really hard to do that.
Right.
It's important to stay laser focused on one niche. And for us right now, that is multifamily. I can imagine someday once we feel like we mastered that space, we could expand. But for today, it's enough work just to try to master that one space.
I can imagine, and it allows you to create, that just-in-time inventory concept. It allows you to have commonality with every unit, right? And, that's a branding opportunity as well as a manufacturing opportunity, right? Same cabinets, same sink. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up just-in-time inventory. What's really neat, so in a typical construction site, a lot of times they want to just bring out all the materials. So that's the initial thought, like bring it out so I don't need to worry about it. Right. You don't realize how many problems that causes, all the removement of that material, the damage that happens, and the result, you don't know where to go looking for the material. It's painful.
Right.
And so once you get to a point where you know literally where everyone is in a building down to a 5-hour window, you can start now trickling the supplies just at the point at
Just
which they
ahead of
need
them.
it inside the
Right.
building. It's pretty
Smart.
incredible.
Wow.
It's very hard to do. And we're not always perfect at it, but it's where we're headed.
Yeah. Wow, you do it better than most. Even if it's not perfection, I guarantee you do it better than most builders, because I'm in that business and I'm always looking for, from an inventory perspective, and what I meant by branding is, every unit that we redo when we acquire a building, or we're getting into development as well, it's a Clark Street building, right? The
Yeah.
flooring's the same, the lightings are the same, the cabinets, the bathrooms look the same, and it's there's a level of quality there that we demand of our teams, but I can't say that on the installation piece that we're efficient, right? I mean, I think it's I probably adhere to the don't do it this way model, where we drop everything for that particular unit that gets dropped, and my guys are either searching for it or walking around it or moving it to be able to do their jobs. And so you've inspired me. I'm gonna take a look at that part of our business now.
Well, and in fairness, your model is way better than not having the materials, which is also a problem in this
True
industry.
statement. True statement. Well, I also adhere to the having no plan is, or having a bad plan is better than no plan, right?
Yeah. I love how you thought about the design of your units, though, because one of the things we're doing now too is we're all the way down to the manufacturing space or supply chain directly with manufacturers across the world, both in Mexico and Asia. But you can start branding and designing like individual faucets to be exactly the way you want them.
Yep.
And so there's really cool stuff you can start doing in that space as well.
Yeah. I think you have to probably get to a certain throughput, right? Before a manufacturer is willing to do that. I'm curious, in terms of the units that you're building on an annual basis. I mean, what do those numbers look like, and what do you have under management these days?
Yeah, we've been growing quite rapidly. So we're building at about 500 units a year right now, but that pace has been more or less doubling every year. So total number of units is only like 1,000.
Yeah, only. That's a lot.
Okay. Well, it feels small compared to how many we're producing.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, but the thing is that once you have the business model figured out, scaling that model it's a different effort, but it gets, I want to say easy, but it certainly becomes a little less complex, right? Systems are systems.
You might think the challenges in developing the business model are certainly huge, but scaling it is a whole nother beast. That's been a very interesting challenge over the years.
Yeah. And so how are you, you mentioned you're doubling year over year. How are you figuring out how to scale? I mean, going from building 250 units, even if that's one complex, right? And it may not be, to, 500, that is a gigantic jump in effort, right? So how are you scaling your systems to handle that?
Stay with us. We'll be right back. A motivated seller just filled out your web form. If you call back within 5 minutes, you're nearly 4 times more likely to get that seller appointment. But delay your follow-up by even just 10 minutes? Forget it. You're toast. Ella Vista Connect calls that lead back in 60 seconds, qualifies them, and schedules your meeting. Find out how much slow follow-up is costing you. Free calculator at ellavista.com/underground.
Yeah, the first major issue was staffing, right? At least in construction, it's really hard to find good staff members.
Right.
And we have a standard of which we look for staff that is basically, our goal is to reach best in the world. And we will literally fly people in all over the country into work every single week, and we'll fly them home at the end of the week because they're best at their niche or whatever they're doing. And so there's a whole world there we could talk about, because that is probably the most important lesson I've ever learned. But so the first issue was just finding those people. And so what we ended up doing was hiring on, it was like 15% of our staff at the time were recruiters.
Right. Sure.
Just to go and try to find all the little people. And then the next big lesson we learned as we started scaling at that speed is that Just because you double your staff does not mean you double production.
True. In fact, in some cases, it hurts your production, right? Your productivity.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's a lot of challenges to solve in that space. And the other interesting thing is we start scaling is we're adding new lines of production. So this past year, we now have steel wall panel production. We also have precast concrete production. It is really hard ramping those things up because you got to get in there, you got to learn the problems, you got to start solving the problems.
Sure.
I think fundamentally what I've learned is you have to have enough great problem solvers, and then the number of new problems coming in have to be lower than the capacity of those people to solve the problems coming in. Because I promise you, there's going to be a ton of problems. You just have to build the capacity to solve the problems fast enough.
And that comes down to human capital, without a doubt.
Absolutely. Right? It's the people, hands down. Get the people right. It's the most important.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. I mean, we're in a very different business, although we're in the same business. Our business models are quite different. Although I'm officially intrigued for sure about how to do it. And so, but the culture that we build, the value chains that we build here, the way that we operate together as a cohesive team, that part I get. And, and so probably like you, our hiring process is pretty rigorous, right? I know plenty of folks that have a role, and if you can fog this mirror, the job's yours, and I'll teach you everything you need to know. And that's just, that doesn't work for us, right?
It doesn't work at all. I mean, there's a point in our journey that I didn't really understand that lesson many years ago, and we had a lot of temp labor to do work. And I can tell you that's a disaster. Don't do that.
Right.
And it was someone much smarter than me came alongside and said, Mike, what are you doing here? Like, you need to fight to find the very, very, very best people you can. There's this notion of talent density, which is the number of talented people you have in an organization.
Yep.
Typically, over time, talent density declines because the smart founder might hire someone a little less smart, or hire someone a little less smart. It's really hard to keep that standard high. But the goal of great companies should be to raise talent density with time. If you can do that and do it well, and to provide freedom and flexibility, it's a game changer.
Yeah, I'm pretty open about the fact if I walk into a team meeting back in my technology days, or especially here, and if I'm the smartest person in the room, we're in a lot of trouble. We are. And I don't mean that to be humorous. I mean, for real, right? I mean, there's a reality there that, because it puts one person it positions one person as being responsible for problem solving. And that's not how you solve problems.
Exactly. We talk a lot about a notion called psychological safety, which Google did a big study to find that was the most important thing that spread their amazing teams from just their average teams. But that's kind of right to your point, though. You need smart people, and you need an environment that's safe where people can challenge and bring up ideas. I often say, if you have any one of us battled out against a genius on a problem, that genius is going to win. Sure. If you take a team of competent individuals in a high functioning environment, the team is always going to win. But the trick is you tap into the brain power of every single person on that team. If you don't do that, it won't work.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'll take a room full of people with 130 IQs over a person with 160 IQ every day, all day. Right. Absolutely. So let me ask you, in terms of asset classes, obviously multifamily, there's, you said something at the beginning that really struck a chord with me, and that is affordability of housing. Right. Yeah. And so tell me more about your vision in terms of not only lowering your construction costs, which obviously, a lot of people would say, oh, wow, you're making a lot more money than I am. But that's not what I heard you say.
Exactly. Yeah, for me, this might seem odd, but I really could care less about money. My dad died at a relatively young age, and I think a lot about how short life really is. And I ask myself every day, like, what is the impact? What do I want to do with the few moments I have here on earth? And for me, that's always been about making a positive impact. You're not going to, you die with a bunch of cash around you. That doesn't help you at all.
Right.
And so for our business, the way I look at it, and we're unabashful about this, we do charge market rents for what we're doing. What we're doing then is we're taking that capital, the cash that we earn in each project, and we're pushing it into the production system. The reason we're doing that is if I offered cheap rents today, because we could, that only solves housing affordability for a handful of people. But if I take that profitability and put it into the system that's building the apartments, the factory that's building the buildings, and then scale that up nationwide, I can then solve housing affordability for the nation. And my goal is we're producing enough units at a high enough rate that supply and demand factors kick in. So much supply is hitting the market that the overall price comes down to equalize those two factors.
It washes over demand. I get it. Yeah, interesting. Well, you're at 1,000 units. You have about 3.8 million, last I heard. So that 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, 6. You've got your work cut out for you, my friend. But you could come to Connecticut and solve it in a matter of about 3 or 4 years, because we only have about 26,000 units affordable housing that need to be created between now and 2030. So plenty of time, and yeah, come on, hop a plane. I'll buy you breakfast, and then we can get to work.
Sounds great. I love it.
All right, man. So let me ask you. It seems like it feels like your father was a loomed large in not only your formation as an adult, and a human, but also as a professional. And so that begs the question. What was the best advice he ever gave you? In terms of either personal, or if you want to share, or professionally, how did he, what was the foundation that he gave you that has allowed you to create this amazing company?
Yeah, he really, probably more than anything, through his actions, gave me a sense of drive and hard work. Mm-hmm. Maybe to a point that my mom would regret it today a little bit, because I tend to be a little too extreme at times. But growing up, we were always trying to do something. We're always building buildings. He was always pushing us to be at a higher level. And I really appreciate that, because that helped me become who I am.
Sure.
I mean, I can even remember just a young pipsqueak on the site, and I would be running away from him, trying to hide in a closet or what have you. He'd have me picking up nails, and we'd be straightening them so that we could reuse those nails. Yeah. So that work ethic, he really instilled in me. And probably the second thing is frugality. He produced buildings at a low cost in a very different way than we do today. But it was that scrappiness. It was that we're in this, bringing my kids in, we're just doing what we need to do to make it happen. But he kind of instilled that value of trying to drive down costs in me, just through a different method at the time.
Interesting. Yeah. And it's funny, you were talking about straightening out nails, and I had a similar vision of me and my dad when we were building stuff. And, he would make me, as a little kid, I too was the one walking around picking up the 10-penny nails and, finding a tree stump or a cinder block and, banging them out straight so that he could use them again. Right. That's funny. Exactly. Wow. That's an interesting vision. You just turned me back into about a 6-year-old in that comment. That was really cool. Thank you.
You've lived
Thank you for that. So in terms of, as a leader, right. And, you're leading a large company that's growing really quickly. One of the things that I ask all of our guests is, and it kind of falls into the bucket of, leaders tend to be readers, right? And, I don't know that it means books anymore, right? Because there's so many different media that you can take advantage of, audiobooks and podcasts and videos, YouTube videos, and obviously books and conferences and seminars and all that. So I'm curious, how do you consume information? And, specifically, who are you paying attention to these days to kind of sharpen your saw?
Yeah, that's a great question. Tom Brady said, if you want to perform at the highest level, you need to prepare at the highest level.
Absolutely.
That's one of our core values. And for me, I'm a bit tenacious about this, down to the point where literally every night I will come home, and after we put the kids to bed, it is documentaries, and then I go to YouTube, because there's so much you can learn on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
But I try to read a book a week, which sounds crazy, but you put it on Audible or what have you. Listen to it on the car rides. You do it during your workout, and podcasts. And I will do master classes. So I will literally find people who are best in the world at a particular niche.
Yep.
And we'll fly them out here to the company. We'll sometimes plead with them to come out and learn from them, which has been fantastic. One of my favorite books is No Rules by Reed Hastings. It's the story of Netflix.
Yeah.
His view on freedom and responsibility has been fantastic. But yeah, it almost doesn't matter like where you go learn. The key there is you're pouring a ton of time and energy into learning. Because we all start off terrible in anything we try. It's an iteration, it's growth. And if you don't have a tenacity to want to learn and grow, you're not going to become best in the world at what you're trying to do.
Yeah, that's a profound point, because I'm trying to remember the gentleman who said it. I was at a conference, and anyway, I'll remember his name, but he was saying, when you go to start something, first off, you're going to be uncomfortable, and that discomfort is growth. That's what it feels like, right? But here's the reality: you're going to suck at it, and then you're going to do it again, and you're going to suck a little less. And eventually you're not going to suck at all. You're actually going to get pretty good at it. And it takes time, but it also takes, as you said, tenacity, right? You have to want to learn. You've got to be able to, continue to, the day I think I know everything I need to know, I'm cooked. Right. And I'm sure you feel the same way. And
I've had so many instances through my life where I try something new. I was so bad at it that everyone said, don't do it.
Right.
Right. You do it again. And you're like, okay, I'm a little less bad, a little less bad, a little less bad. The key is the first time you do it, you know you're going to be bad at it.
Absolutely embrace that.
Don't make that part of your psyche. Don't believe that's who you are. This is where you are in the journey today.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about, you have a podcast that you're beginning to produce, and I was telling you, it takes, a lot of episodes to kind of start to find your voice and figure out and get comfortable and figure out the message you want to send. And, and so the way I combated that is I never listened those first 20 or so episodes. I don't think I ever listened to them because I didn't want to get in my head. Right. But now I feel like, opinions vary, but I feel like, there's a comfort level there. And now, we're trying to learn more and expand and expand our guests and the type of things we were talking about. I mean, heck, yesterday I was talking about RV parks. Today I'm talking about just-in-time inventory and manufacturing efficiencies, and as it applies to our business. And, one of the cool things about having a podcast, and you're going to learn this, is that you can trade an audience trade access to a platform and an audience to meet some really smart, really interesting, highly successful people that, if I picked up the phone and called one of them, they may not return my phone call, but they'll come on my podcast, right? And I find that interesting. And you're a classic example of this, right? I mean, the reason we're meeting, yes, I stalked you online for a little while, and I tend to do that. I tell all my guests that I've been stalking them online because it's true, I have. Because one of the ways that I learn is by looking at trying to identify the people who really understand this business and they're doing it at a very high level. And then, I try to see what I can glean from them in terms of, the videos they put out and the podcasts or, articles and all that. And, once I think I start to have my head around, okay, this person is way smarter than me, I'd love to learn from them. That's when I start knocking on your door and begging you to come on the podcast. So, you were gracious enough to come here. So thank you for that. But, man, I got to tell you, it's so I mentioned, you have an upcoming podcast. I'd love to hear more about that, given your perspective on the industry.
Yeah, we're creating a podcast called Becoming a Unicorn. It's about the journey of small companies growing to billion-dollar enterprises. Yeah. We're going to start by opening ourselves up and showing a little bit about that journey has been like for us. We're at about a $200 million valuation today. And it's you get to see what that journey is like, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But we'll also be interacting with other guests and other companies that have been on that same journey. And we'll explore what their journey was like and what we can learn from it as well. Excellent. Wow, I look forward to that. And so is this on the schedule yet? Are you at the point where you're going to announce a
an episode 1, or are we still a few weeks or months away from that?
Yeah, so we don't have an announcement date yet, but we've recorded a ton of episodes. Actually, very much to your point, if you've ever seen or read the book from Pixar, Creativity Inc.,
I did.
they talk in that book
Book.
about how the first version of every film is terrible, and then like you edit and change it again, it's better and better and better.
Yep.
That's the journey we're going on right now behind the scenes.
Sure.
It's kind of like your first 20 podcasts. We're creating all those first 20 episodes now to get to the really good ones.
Yeah.
And so, but over the next couple of months, we hope to have it launched. You can visit our website, norhart.com, norhart.com. And there's a place there you can sign up to just get notified with updates of the podcast.
Consider me one of your future subscribers. I'm looking forward to this. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, you're choosing to record and refine and get it right, you know, in your own lab, right?
Yeah.
I'm more of a, you know, head first, let's ready, fire, aim kind of guy. So I did it in public, and, you know, hopefully I didn't embarrass myself too much, but the you know, it's all good either way. It's fine. But the, you know, the fact is that you know, it does take some time to find your voice and get it right, and make sure that, you know, the message that you intend to send out is resonating with your audience. So I congratulate you on that. So Mike, the other thing that you had talked about, you know, given that you have refined your business process to such a fine point, I'm curious, do you also, you know, what is technology, you know, what role does technology play in your business? And, you know, is that something else that you're thinking about sharing with the audience?
Yeah, technology is really a key part. In fact, my degree is in computer science, so I kind of look at the whole business from a technological standpoint.
Sure,
we have a
too.
team of software developers on staff that work on technologies for our business. A lot of them are technologies that support the behind the scenes systems that we built out. But some of the forward facing stuff that's kind of fun is the work on smart home technology. Or Apple hasn't totally allowed this yet, but we want it so that your Apple Watch can open every door through the buildings. And so the hardware is all there. We got some software that we're waiting for Apple to release.
Wow,
but,
that would be cool.
Yeah, there's just cool experiences like that you can start to build into the experience for the resident. But the big goal of technology is not to be some flashy thing. Right. It's to remove the minor friction points out of your life. Right. That's what we try to do.
Excellent. And so, you know, one of the things I seem to recall is that you have a technology platform that you're building for other investors as well. Is that right?
It's for investors to invest within Norhart, but it's Norhart Invest. One of the things we looked at over the past year is, could we replace the bank? And so we actually looked into if we could actually create our own bank, and we talked with some of the foremost experts on it. Fascinating. If you want to learn about creating a bank, you can do it. The challenge was for us is you can't invest too much of the bank's assets into your own deals. Right. So that was regulation that we couldn't get past. So instead, we're going down the SEC approval route, and we're creating, it's not a bank, not at all, not FDIC insured, but there are accounts that people can put money into, earn a rate of return and get money back out of it. You can also lock funds in for a period of time, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, maybe 2 years. Sure. But what's neat about it now is you, as the investor, will get the bank's profits. So we give you all the interest and then all the profits and stuff on top of that. It's sort of another neat idea to remove those barriers for investors. What we find is most Americans are excluded from the real estate market. Because most of the real estate deals are only for accredited investors. Right. That's primarily because it's a way easier approach for companies to get investment through accredited investors. Right. But instead, we're taking a different approach. We're doing what's called a Reg A, which is one step shy of a fully public company. Yeah. And that enables us then to allow all investors, all Americans to invest in a platform like this. Interesting. And so Reg A, it's the first time I'd ever heard of that, it was Grant Cardone's new he calls it a fund, but but I understand what you're saying. It's not really, it is a fund, but not really. Yeah. And so so in terms of
getting involved with this. So, is there any sort of requirements from, let's say I'm Ed Matthews, non-accredited investor, and I live in, Chichicastenango, Kansas, right? And so what would I have to provide to you in order to be able to participate in this kind of vehicle?
Yeah, we want to make it really, really easy. So we want to make it as easy as signing up for an online bank account. There are a couple of added requirements because of the SEC rules.
Yeah.
In particular, if you're a non-accredited investor, you can't invest more than 10% of your net income or 10% of your net assets.
Okay.
And so I think that's just a prudent rule. Regardless, you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. So I actually kind of like that rule, but there's an additional check for things like that in the platform.
Okay.
But other than that, it's not launched yet, but once it is launched, you just go on, sign up, and within a matter of minutes, you'll be able to put money into an account.
And then, so, and I'm asking this because of me, but I'll probably for my audience as well. In terms of getting money in and out of this type of financial product, you said that there's some sort of ability is there like a redemption period every 6 months? Is there other ways to pull the money in and out if you need it? Car needs new tires. So I do, right?
Yeah, so it actually connects up with your other bank accounts, and so it just can take money in and out of those other bank accounts. And then for the base account that you can put money into, you can take it out whenever you want. There's no restriction on the time. Now, the interest on that's not going to be as good.
Sure.
But you can then lock it for whatever period you want. So say you don't need the money for 3 months, lock it for 3 months, and you get a much higher rate of return, or you could lock it for a year if you don't need it, even more rate of return. It's really your choice. It provides you, the investor, the flexibility to do what's right for you, and you get more higher interest the longer you lock it for.
Yeah, and it also probably inspires and causes some urgency on your end as well, because you've got to keep that money moving in order to satisfy and fulfill those interest commitments, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're basically monitoring, called monitoring durations.
Yep.
So we monitor and look at where we're putting the money to match it up with the duration of the time periods that or investors are putting the money in.
Interesting. Well, I'll tell you, this has been an education and a half. So I'm curious about, you mentioned you have a family. So when you are not working your business and you're not, saving everyone from the affordable housing crisis, what do you like to do? How do you spend your time?
My kids.
Yeah.
I got 2 daughters. One is 2, one is 4, just about to turn 5 or this week.
Wow. Happy birthday.
But yeah, well, just a few days ago, my little 2-year-old comes up to me. She goes, "Emma hamburger, Emma hamburger, Emma hamburger." And what that means is she wants me to take her up on the table, lay her down. She lays flat on her back, and I kind of move my hands up and down.
Slice
on
and
her
dice her.
stomach. She loves it. So it's just, I'm at that stage of life that they're so cute, they're so fun, and I just enjoy them so much.
So I too am a father of daughters. I have a 20-year-old and a 15-year-old.
Okay.
And neither of them will let me do hamburger with them anymore, but because it's not cool anymore. But it gets even better. It's the best thing you'll ever do. And enjoy every minute, because you'll blink and that 2-year-old will be 15 and looking to go out to the movies, and that too is wonderful. But it's those early years are a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's what I'm enjoying right now.
Yeah. Well, good. Congrats and enjoy, and happy birthday to your daughter. So Mike, this has been an enlightening conversation, to say the least, and thank you again. So if people want to learn more about you or Norhart, or any of your products, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, you can visit our website at norhart.com. That's NORHART.com. If you click on invest, you can learn about the investments. If you click on podcast, you can learn about the podcast, and just learn generally about our website, and even our social handles are all on there.
Excellent. Well, Mike Kaeding from Norhart Investments. Mike, thank you so much for your time today. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. And I'm grateful for not only your insights, but also you've inspired me to take a hard look at how we're building our own units. And hopefully I can hop a plane someday and come pick your brain for a little while.
Oh, that'd be so much fun. Thank you so much.
I'll buy the coffee and lunch.
Even better.
All right, cool. So Mike, thanks again.
Thanks.
This has been the Real Estate Underground podcast, a Clark Street Capital presentation. Thanks for joining us. If you're enjoying the show, please remember to subscribe and share it with your friends. If you'd like to learn more about Clark Street Capital and our upcoming projects, please join our investor club at clarkst.com/join. Until next time, happy investing.
This has been the Real Estate Underground. Don't forget to subscribe. It helps us grow. Until next time, Undergrounders, remember your real estate journey begins with a simple step forward. Now get to it. Bye for now.